The traditional approach to modern relationships often encourages women to invest deeply without expecting clear commitment from men. You might find yourself shifting your standards and looking past early signs of emotional distance just to keep a casual connection alive. This happens when you operate from an anxious mindset, constantly giving more because you fear the sudden silence of a failed connection. This behavioral pattern teaches a partner that he can offer minimal effort while still enjoying full access to your time and attention. When you act as a pleasing partner who accepts bad behavior, you show an inconsistent man that your presence has a low cost. You keep pouring your energy into a dynamic where your investment is never truly matched. The eager mindset of the nice girl compels you to rush forward to fix every uncomfortable silence and over-explain your standards during a conflict, which instantly strips you of all magnetic pull. You allow your focus to slide completely away from your own personal goals and your daily routine, transforming your life into a passive satellite that orbits a man's unpredictable moods. This self-sabotaging strategy is driven by a deep illusion that masculine approval is the only way to confirm your intrinsic value. When you compromise your peace waiting by the phone for an erratic text reply, you are volunteering to occupy a low-value space within his universe. A secure partner understands that her attention is a premium asset that must never be given for crumbs of attention. Many women fall into the habit of auditioning for a permanent position in a man's life by performing endless favors and offering high privileges on a casual budget. You cross lines for someone who has not even chosen you, hoping that your utility will make you irreplaceable. This behavior pattern only proves to his subconscious mind that you lack the confidence to demand clarity right from the start. You accept vague phrases about not being ready for something serious, while you continue to grant him the warmth and comfort of a dedicated companion. By protecting him from the natural consequences of his hesitation, you ensure that he never has a reason to step up. You should never accept being a placeholder, occupying a temporary spot while he looks for his true choice. When you allow a relationship to continue without a clear direction, you are effectively training an inconsistent partner to treat you as an option. He learns that he can disappear for days and return to find your energy exactly where he left it, completely unchanged and fully available. This dynamic destroys your confidence and keeps you in a state of hypervigilance, constantly scanning his words for signs of validation. You waste your valuable focus analyzing his mixed signals, instead of realizing that confusion itself is a clear answer. A woman who respects herself does not participate in guessing games regarding her position in a relationship. She understands that if a man's actions do not reflect a desire to build together, his words are entirely meaningless. The illusion of patience makes you believe that if you just wait a little longer, his circumstances will change, and he will finally see your worth. You tell yourself that he is simply stressed with work or dealing with personal issues, creating elaborate excuses for his lack of investment. This protective behavior only prolongs your own emotional exhaustion, while allowing him to benefit from your loyalty for free. A low-effort partner will gladly accept your understanding nature because it allows him to enjoy your company without facing any accountability. You lose sight of the fact that a man who truly values you will naturally make an effort to keep you secure. Staying in a state of limbo does not inspire commitment, it merely lowers your value in his eyes. By remaining overly accommodating, you signal that you are willing to settle for a secondary position while he figures out his emotional life. You give up your leverage the moment you agree to a modern situationship that lacks structural respect and clear boundaries. This passive compliance ensures that you carry the heavy emotional load of a connection while he enjoys the perks of a single lifestyle. You find yourself shrinking your natural requirements just to avoid being labeled as difficult or demanding by someone who is doing the bare minimum. This trade-off is never advantageous, as it forces you to compromise your mental peace for a connection that could vanish at any moment. You end up wasting your days hoping for a sudden change that will never come. The nice girl often feels an intense pressure to maintain a sweet, non-demanding exterior, even when her boundaries are being crossed. You avoid having direct conversations about intent because you fear pushing him away or creating discomfort in the relationship. This silence is not a sign of strength. It is a manifestation of the fear that your authentic standards are too high for a regular partner to meet. When you choose his temporary comfort over your long-term security, You volunteer for the emotional drain of an unbalanced connection. A man respects what he has to earn and protect, not what is handed to him with zero requirements. If your presence does not require a clear standard of respect, it will be treated with casual indifference. When you finally choose to value your own time, the fear of losing a low-effort connection naturally dissolves into absolute clarity. You stop viewing a man's hesitation as a reflection of your desirability and start seeing it as a reflection of his inability to match your standard. This shift in perspective allows you to walk away from ambiguous situations without needing a long explanation or a dramatic confrontation. You simply recognize that the dynamic does not meet your requirements, and you remove your attention from his universe. Your value is not dependent on a man's willingness to see it, and you refuse to spend your days convincing an inconsistent partner to choose you. You move forward with your life, completely unbothered by his absence. The moment you step out of the placeholder trap, you reclaim the massive amount of energy you used to waste on a lopsided dynamic. You stop auditioning for people who are merely looking for a temporary companion to fill their empty weekends. This internal sovereignty changes the way you interact with the dating world, making you completely immune to low-effort strategies and ambiguous timelines. You enter every connection with a clear understanding of your own excellence and a refusal to accept anything less than absolute reciprocity. By establishing this unshakable baseline, you ensure that only a partner who is ready to make your life easier can remain in your space. You walk away from the nice girl conditioning and enter a life of complete autonomy. Are you finding this strategic breakdown of the placeholder trap valuable so far? Make sure to subscribe to the channel right now so you never miss any of our definitive psychological blueprints for high-standard relationships.
When Ruby escaped the placeholder trap,
Ruby spent 2 years building a shared life with her partner, while also dedicating herself to her interior design projects and regular Pilates sessions. She made her long-term standards completely clear from the early stages of the connection, openly stating that marriage was her definitive goal for a serious relationship. Her partner frequently claimed to share this vision of the future, yet his actions never aligned with the milestones required to turn those words into reality. Whenever the timeline for commitment approached, he introduced vague reasons to delay the conversation, asking for more time to organize his finances. Ruby noticed the continuous pattern of hesitation, but chose to remain observant, keeping her emotional peace intact. The turning point occurred during a quiet dinner when Ruby brought up their future timeline after 2 full years of deep investment. Her partner offered the exact same ambiguous phrases, suggesting they revisit the conversation in another year without giving any structural guarantees. Instead of entering into a long argument, over-explaining her standards, or shedding tears of frustration, Ruby felt a wave of complete clarity. She recognized that she was being placed in a permanent holding pattern, serving as a comfortable companion, while he kept his long-term options open. She refused to waste her energy on being a placeholder for an inconsistent man who viewed her non-negotiable requirements as a negotiation. Ruby did not make a dramatic scene or demand that he change his mind to prevent her from walking away. She simply looked at him with absolute calm, communicated her decision in one clear sentence, and removed her presence from his life that very night. Over the following weeks, she focused entirely on her internal serenity, attending rock concerts with her close friends, and spending quality time with her mother and aunt. Her ex attempted to send casual messages to test her boundaries, but she never granted him access to her time without a definitive commitment. Ruby felt the natural sting of the breakup, but she never allowed that temporary pain to dictate her actions. Ruby stepped back into her complete routine without waiting for a grand apology or a sudden change of heart. She poured her focus back into her creative interior design concepts, finding immense satisfaction in the structural harmony of her professional projects. Her loved ones provided a solid baseline of connection that made the empty spaces of the breakup feel entirely manageable. She maintained her physical vitality through precise physical alignment during her morning fitness routines, letting the tension leave her body naturally. By choosing her own certainty over his perpetual hesitation, she preserved her dignity and closed the door firmly on a connection that was stagnant. The emotional clearing that followed her decision allowed Ruby to recognize how much of her focus had been consumed by passive waiting. She no longer had to analyze text messages for hidden intent or guess where she stood in a man's long-term hierarchy. Her house became a sanctuary of quiet stability, where she could play her acoustic guitar without the background noise of relationship anxiety. The temporary grief of losing a long-term partner was real, but it existed alongside a deep sense of relief and total self-ownership. She proved to herself that she could love intensely, while retaining the strength to walk out the moment her requirements were disregarded. Her friends noticed a refined sense of composure in her attitude during their regular get-togethers. Ruby was fully engaged in the laughter of her circle, completely detached from the urge to check her phone for incoming alerts. She was present in her own life, enjoying the fruit of her creative labor and the unwavering loyalty of the special people in her life. Her past connection became a valuable lesson in observation rather than a source of lingering bitterness or emotional confusion. She realized that her standard was non-negotiable, and anyone incapable of meeting it simply lacked the capacity to remain in her space. By enforcing her boundary without a long explanation, Ruby demonstrated that her attention was a premium asset that could never be held on credit. She left her partner to face the quiet reality of her total absence, refusing to offer the closure of an emotional confrontation. This silent withdrawal confirmed her sovereign worth, showing that she was entirely self-sufficient and detached from any singular relationship outcome. Ruby moved forward into her future with a peaceful mind, surrounded by the people and passions that reflected her high standard. She shattered the nice girl habit of waiting for a man's readiness and chose to be the final author of her own timeline.
Why you should never settle for crumbs.
A woman who respects her destiny refuses to spend her years decoding a man's hesitation. When a partner suggests that commitment is a future luxury he cannot currently afford, he is providing an accurate assessment of his limited investment. Remaining in a stationary position while hoping for an emotional awakening is a direct compromise of your personal value. A low-effort partner will gladly accept your understanding nature because it provides him with constant comfort at zero cost. Your presence is a premium asset that must never be held on credit or subjected to endless negotiations. True emotional authority means recognizing that confusion is not a complex romantic puzzle. It is an active rejection of your standards. You do not demand clarity from someone who is actively demonstrating a lack of readiness. Instead, you observe the data, accept the reality of his low investment, and adjust your participation accordingly. Trying to force a man to see your worth through endless acts of service only lowers your position in his subconscious mind. The elegant withdrawal of a secure woman reflects the calculated precision of a feline moving away from an unstable environment. A cat does not engage in a loud confrontation when a space no longer offers security. It simply turns around and walks out into the quiet night with perfect posture. You do not owe an uncommitted partner a detailed roadmap of your emotional boundaries when those boundaries have already been crossed. Your silent departure is not a manipulative tactic designed to trigger his anxiety. It is the natural consequence of his inability to match the standard required to remain in your immediate presence. Pain is a natural component of choosing your long-term peace over temporary attachment, but that discomfort must never dictate your actions. Breaking a bond creates an undeniable internal sting, yet a secure woman processes that grief without breaking her stride. You allow yourself to feel the weight of the disappointment while maintaining your physical vitality and professional focus. Loneliness is a temporary state of transition, whereas the loss of your self-respect within a stagnant dynamic is a permanent depletion. You choose the clean ache of freedom over the heavy drain of perpetual uncertainty. An inconsistent partner learns the true value of your presence only when he is forced to experience the absolute reality of your absence. As long as you remain available to answer his casual messages and fill his empty weekends, he has no incentive to change his behavior. You stop providing a soft landing for a man who refuses to claim you as his definitive choice. When you close the door on an ambiguous connection, you are not locking him out in anger. You are simply opening the exit so he can depart from your timeline completely. You leave him to sit alone with the quiet memory of a high-value woman. Your life contains an abundance of fulfillment that is entirely independent of masculine validation. You have projects to develop, a career to nurture, and a vital community of loved ones who reflect your authentic excellence. Relegating your happiness to the conditional readiness of an unstable partner is an act of emotional surrender. A secure woman cultivates her internal sanctuary with intense dedication, ensuring her peace is never dependent on a relationship outcome. You are already complete on your own, and any partner who enters your universe must actively add to that existing harmony. When a man realizes that you are entirely unbothered by the prospect of walking away, the entire power dynamic of the connection shifts. He perceives that you are not a pick-me woman who will tolerate disrespect out of a desperate fear of being single. Your willingness to let a non-committed partner go demonstrates an unshakable sense of self-ownership. You do not hold on to a connection that requires you to shrink your natural requirements or suppress your voice. If a partner cannot match your timeline, he simply loses the privilege of occupying space in your reality. A high-value connection requires absolute reciprocity from the very first interaction, leaving no room for convenient situationships or vague future promises. You do not accept the role of a temporary companion who keeps the seat warm while a man decides what he wants from life. Your time is an unrenewable resource, and you refuse to give it for ambiguous phrases or low-effort plans. When you establish your requirements with absolute clarity, you filter out inconsistent partners before they can drain your emotional reserves. You remain sovereign, detached from the outcome, and completely secure in your worth. The modern pressure to be the easygoing partner who accepts minimal effort is a trap designed to keep women performing wifey duties on a casual budget. You reject the conditioning that equates endless female patience with romantic virtue. True virtue lies in your ability to protect your peace and enforce your boundaries without needing a long explanation. You communicate your standards assertively when appropriate, but you never enter into a debate about your basic value. If the initial communication fails to result in a change, your immediate withdrawal becomes your final statement. Reclaiming your position as the ultimate authority of your life requires you to step out of the placeholder trap permanently. You stop auditioning for a place in a man's future and begin evaluating whether his actions are worthy of a place in yours. This internal shift replaces hypervigilance with deep serenity, allowing you to move through the world with unbothered elegance. The power of the black cat is fully realized when your attention becomes a rare prize, accessible only to those who possess the maturity to respect it. You walk away from any limbo and step into your absolute autonomy. If you are ready to stop auditioning for a permanent position in an unstable man's world and reclaim your sovereignty, you need a precise tactical guide. The Black Cat Playbook provides direct answers for specific situations, helping you instantly identify when a man is merely wasting your time instead of offering genuine structural intent. I have compiled the essential psychological frameworks and behavioral protocols used to maintain high standards and cultivate unbreakable autonomy. You can access the full playbook by clicking the link in the description down below.
Shattering the internal limbo.
The psychological damage of remaining in a connection without clear intent alters a woman's mental baseline from absolute peace to constant hypervigilance. When you accept an ambiguous timeline, your subconscious mind processes this delay as a confirmation that your requirements are secondary to a man's comfort. This continuous state of uncertainty drains your emotional reserves, forcing your brain to devote massive cognitive focus to analyzing mixed signals and predicting unpredictable moods. You begin to experience a subtle erosion of identity, where your professional aspirations and daily personal routines become entirely affected by a partner's mood. This mental stagnation creates a deep internal friction, making you feel anxious and small within a dynamic that should offer structural security. When a woman shifts into a sovereign state, the internal mental environment instantly transitions from scarcity to absolute abundance. You no longer look for external validation to confirm your intrinsic value, because your sense of excellence is already anchored within your independent lifestyle. This psychological boundary completely shields your nervous system from the anxiety of waiting, turning your presence into a self-centered sanctuary of complete composure. A man immediately senses this lack of emotional desperation, recognizing that you are entirely unbothered by the possibility of the relationship ending. By refusing to participate in long debates or over-explain your standards, you preserve your energy and protect your sovereignty. The masculine mind operates on a subconscious system of respect that is directly tied to the cost of a woman's presence. When a low-effort partner encounters a pleasing companion who tolerates endless delays, his primitive brain processes this compliance as a green light to lower his investment. He experiences a total drop in urgency, realizing he can enjoy the premium benefits of your devotion without providing any long-term structural guarantees. However, the exact millisecond he interacts with a secure woman who enforces her requirements with absolute calm, a profound psychological shift occurs inside his mind. He instantly realizes that this connection requires maximum accountability, and that any attempt to offer an ambiguous situationship will result in his immediate and permanent exit. Choosing to step out of the holding pattern does not mean a secure woman is entirely immune to the natural sting of a broken connection. You process the disappointment of a failed relationship with complete honesty, yet your physical vitality and professional focus remain entirely unaffected by the transition. This emotional resilience allows you to walk away from stagnation without needing a dramatic confrontation to achieve closure. Your internal sovereignty ensures that you view the departure of an inconsistent partner as an inevitable consequence of his inconsistency, rather than a personal tragedy. The precise movement of a high-value woman when her boundaries are compromised mirrors the elegant detachment of a sovereign feline shifting its position. A cat does not offer a loud reaction or enter into a fierce argument when an environment ceases to provide safety and structural comfort. It simply rises with flawless posture, collects its focus, and walks away into the quiet distance without looking back a single time. You do not waste words trying to convince a hesitant partner to choose you. You simply close the door and let your complete absence speak on your behalf. True independence requires you to maintain a rich and fulfilled existence that remains completely unaffected by your current relationship status. Your lifestyle must contain a solid network of authentic connections, career goals, and personal passions that keep your daily routine vibrant and meaningful. When your schedule is filled with creative milestones, healthy habits, and loyal loved ones, masculine attention stops being the center of your universe. You enter the dating scenario from a position of total strength, looking for a partner who can actively add to your existing piece rather than someone to complete your identity. This baseline of self-sufficiency ensures that you never view an inconsistent relationship as an option worth pursuing. A man who truly possesses the capacity to build a future will naturally look for ways to secure a high-value woman before she decides to remove her energy. He understands that your presence is a premium privilege that other high-standard individuals would gladly protect and cherish. When he witnesses your absolute refusal to be a placeholder, his desire to provide and facilitate your lifestyle becomes his primary driving force. He leaves no room for confusion, mixed signals, or ambiguous timelines because he fears the quiet finality of your silent withdrawal. If a partner fails to exhibit this natural level of urgency after a reasonable period of observation, he simply confirms that he lacks the qualifications to stay. The internal peace that comes from enforcing your boundaries is a non-negotiable requirement for your long-term health and mental clarity. When you stop auditing a man's potential and start judging him strictly on his current actions, the background noise of relationship anxiety completely disappears. You no longer waste your energy wondering where you stand or trying to force a lopsided dynamic to work through sheer effort. Your mind becomes quiet, serene, and entirely aligned with your own personal evolution and daily success. You reclaim the massive amount of focus you used to scatter on ambiguous situationships and redirect it toward building an extraordinary life on your own terms. The power of the black cat becomes your ultimate shield the moment you decide that your time will never be consumed by a non-committal arrangement. You move through the world with an unbothered elegance, entirely immune to low-effort strategies and empty promises of future change. This psychological sovereignty transforms your interactions, ensuring that anyone who enters your space must match your level of maturity and commitment. You leave behind the anxious habits of the past and step into a life of complete autonomy, emotional freedom, and unbreakable inner strength. You are the final authority of your destiny, and your standards are not up for negotiation.
exposing fake intentions fast.
Evaluating a man's long-term orientation requires a precise understanding of how different personalities react to firm boundaries. A true facilitator is a partner whose natural disposition drives him to make your life easier, actively coordinating his schedule to build certainty. He approaches a relationship with a mindset of contribution, ensuring his actions match his verbal promises from the very first interaction. Conversely, a drainer is an inconsistent partner who seeks maximum emotional access while offering minimal investment in return. He thrives in ambiguity, using sweet words to secure your companionship, while actively avoiding the structural milestones that define a real commitment. Recognizing these distinct behavioral patterns protects your focus from being consumed by temporary connections. By setting a non-negotiable standard, you implement a natural psychological filter within your dating environment. When you establish clear requirements regarding your timeline, you force a man to reveal his true capacity and intent without needing a long explanation. A low-effort partner cannot maintain his position in your space when his casual strategies fail to grant him easy privileges. Your complete refusal to accept a vague situationship causes a low-value individual to experience intense internal friction, as he realizes his usual manipulation is entirely ineffective. By remaining detached from the immediate outcome, you allow his reactions to provide all the data necessary to evaluate the relationship. A woman who embodies internal sovereignty understands that she does not need to audition to inspire a man's readiness. You observe how a partner manages your boundaries, noting whether he steps up to secure your presence or relies on circular arguments to delay the future. This analytical approach replaces the anxious habit of chasing validation with the cool composure of an evaluator. If a man possesses genuine intent, your high standards will naturally inspire him to present his best options and protect the connection. If he is merely looking for a temporary placeholder to fill his empty weekends, your boundaries will cause him to exit your universe. When a facilitator interacts with a secure woman who communicates her standards assertively, his immediate response is rooted in respect and structural alignment. He does not feel threatened by your requirement for clarity. Instead, his masculine drive is activated by the realization that your attention must be earned through consistent action. He takes direct initiative to ensure you feel secure, providing clear timelines and aligning his professional life to include you permanently. A high-value man appreciates a partner who respects her own destiny enough to demand reciprocity, viewing her boundaries as a sign of rare quality. He works intentionally to make your life easier, removing confusion from the dynamic entirely. Interacting with a facilitator produces an environment of deep serenity and mutual expansion, where your emotional investment is fully matched by his choices. You experience a total lack of hypervigilance, because his transparency leaves no room for guessing games or hidden intent. This balanced dynamic allows you to focus heavily on your career goals and personal evolution, while enjoying the warmth of a protective alliance. He understands that a man who loves a woman will naturally facilitate her peace, and he gladly carries his share of the relationship load. Your connection becomes a source of vital strength, rather than an exhausting project that requires constant supervision. When an inconsistent drainer encounters the unbreakable baseline of a sovereign partner, his subconscious mind realizes that his access is strictly conditional. Since he only seeks a low-cost placeholder to provide comfort without accountability, your demand for real commitment feels like an unfair pressure. He will attempt to use defensive guilt, claiming that your standards are too high, or that you are rushing a natural process. When these verbal strategies fail to shrink your requirements, his lack of substance is fully exposed, and his text replies become cold and distant. His erratic behavior under pressure is the ultimate confirmation that he never intended to build a shared future. The consequence of keeping a low-effort partner in your universe is the perpetual depletion of your energy and decline of your mental health. You find yourself trapped in a stagnant holding pattern, waiting for a readiness that will never materialize because he is already receiving your loyalty for free. This lopsided arrangement forces you to carry the heavy emotional burden of the relationship while he retains his complete freedom to look elsewhere. Your mind ceases to be a sanctuary of quiet stability, becoming instead a center for overanalyzing mixed signals and processing constant disappointment. Staying with a drainer ensures that your best years are traded for empty promises and neglect. By maintaining your composure during his withdrawal, you show a low-value man that your emotional stability is completely decoupled from his actions. You refuse to lower your standards or send long messages to salvage a connection that fails to meet your basic requirements. You return to your fluid fitness routines, your professional milestones, and the supportive circle of your family and friends with total serenity. This unbothered attitude strips him of his perceived leverage, leaving him to sit alone with the realization that he was never qualified to remain in your space. You process the temporary sting of his departure while keeping your dignity entirely uncompromised. Filtering your connections through the lens of genuine intent ensures that your emotional resources are reserved exclusively for dynamics that offer consistency and reciprocity. You step out of the nice girl mindset that tolerates ambiguity, recognizing that a man's hesitation is all the information you need to walk away. This behavioral sorting mechanism keeps your mental space clean, stable, and completely aligned with your high standards. You move forward with your life, fully self-sufficient and detached from any relationship outcome, knowing your value is absolute. By enforcing this strict boundary, you ensure that only a true facilitator who is ready to make your life easier can occupy space in your reality.
Your playbook for breaking the limbo.
To master the transition from a placeholder into a sovereign force, you need to immediately alter your tactical approach to masculine hesitation. The first step requires you to state your long-term standard regarding commitment once, and only once, with total absolute clarity. You must refuse to enter into an emotional debate or lower your parameters to accommodate his current excuses. Your verbal communication must remain short, direct, and completely anchored in self-respect. If this initial statement fails to produce a clear milestone, you should simply withdraw your focus and let the quiet distance expand between your universes without providing an additional explanation. The second step demands that you actively observe the effort from the early stages of dating to identify early warning signs. You must stop performing unearned acts of service or offering exclusive loyalty to an inconsistent partner who behaves like a casual acquaintance. When a man minimizes his communication or delays a planned meeting, you should match his energy level immediately by redirecting your attention toward your own routine. You must internalize the reality that your presence carries a high value, and you should never volunteer to carry the heavy emotional load of a lopsided arrangement. The third step requires establishing the strict discipline of behavioral vetting through historical tracking instead of empty promises. When a man uses circular arguments to justify his lack of structural intent, you must view this pattern as a definitive rejection of your standards. You should never adjust your natural timeline or compromise your peace to keep an unstable dynamic from failing completely. If a partner exhibits consistent hesitation regarding a serious commitment, you must open the exit door so he can depart from your timeline without you shedding a single tear. The fourth step involves cultivating a psychological detachment that decouples your happiness from his romantic investment. You must maintain a vibrant and rich lifestyle filled with professional milestones, creative focus, and supportive circles that keep your schedule completely fulfilled. When you choose to protect your personal baseline, you should eliminate the anxious habit of waiting by the phone or overanalyzing text replies. You should fill your days with personal projects that reinforce your complete autonomy and absolute inner stability. The fifth step leads you to sustain your boundaries through decisive, silent action, rather than relying on endless explanations or dramatic ultimatums. When an inconsistent partner crosses a non-negotiable standard or reveals a hidden lie, you must withdraw your energy completely and permanently. You should refuse to grant a low-investment man the closure of an emotional confrontation or a long conversation about what went wrong. Your immediate absence must become your final statement, showing him that access to your universe can never be taken for granted. The sixth step focuses on reclaiming full authority over your destiny by rejecting the traditional nice girl conditioning. You must actively stop auditioning for a permanent position in an unstable partner's universe by proving your utility through endless favors. When a man shows you that he is comfortable keeping you in a vague situationship, you must accept that data instantly and recalibrate your expectations. You should never shrink your requirements to avoid being labeled as difficult by someone who offers the absolute bare minimum. By making reciprocity the absolute law of every single interaction within your personal dating scenario, you finalize this behavioral blueprint. You must refuse to accept a secondary position in a man's hierarchy, or stay where your presence is treated as a convenient option. When you establish this baseline, you ensure that your attention remains a rare prize, accessible only to those who possess the maturity to respect it. You should walk away from the placeholder trap with perfect posture, looking forward to a future of complete autonomy.
Reclaiming your true destiny.
The decision to step completely out of the placeholder trap is the ultimate confirmation of your self-ownership and standard. You must realize that a partner who uses distance or harsh words to make you feel small is not someone you should try to change with endless kindness. When you choose to protect your personal timeline, you force an inconsistent individual to face the quiet reality of your absolute absence. You do not stay at a table where your requirement is treated as a negotiation. You simply collect your focus and let the silent distance expand. It is time to let go of the social pressure to be the easygoing girl who tolerates everything and reclaim full authority over your destiny. Your transformation into a secure force requires you to choose the clean path of freedom over the heavy drain of perpetual uncertainty. You process the temporary disappointment of a failed connection with complete honesty, yet your daily routine and internal peace remain entirely uncompromised. True emotional sovereignty means recognizing that confusion is not a complex romantic puzzle, but an active rejection of your standards. If a man lacks the maturity to provide structural certainty, he simply forfeits the privilege of remaining in your universe. You walk away from the nice girl habit of waiting for readiness and enter a life of complete autonomy. If you have ever found yourself waiting in limbo for an inconsistent partner to recognize your worth, it is time to document your boundary. I want you to go to the comments section right now and share your personal story of overcoming low-effort dynamics. This stance not only clears your own cognitive environment, but also inspires a global community of high-standard women to protect their time. Your voice is a vital asset within this sovereign space, and your testimony reinforces the baseline of our shared evolution. Let your written word become the final boundary that separates you from the holding patterns of the past. By leaving your mark below, you signal to your subconscious mind that you will never again accept a secondary position in an unbalanced connection. You join a collective network of independent individuals who refuse to compromise their peace for a placeholder status. You close the door firmly on ambiguity and step forward with an unbothered elegance. Your value is non-negotiable, and you are entirely detached from the departure of anyone who was never qualified to stay. To continue refining your internal strategy and master the psychological tools required for absolute emotional independence, you must watch the next guide on the screen. Click on the card right here to discover the exact behavioral tactics that will make you master detachment. Keep your alignment precise, protect your mental focus, and continue moving forward with the absolute composure of a feline. Stay tuned, and I will see you on our next journey.
Hi there! I'm so glad you found me, and I cannot wait to share more with you. So make sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other content, and I'll see you in the next one.